Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and this is a weekly show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central. We work at Rackspace Hosting, and this is my team of SharePoint consultants at Rackspace. And SharePoint Power Hour is all about business solutions in SharePoint and Office 365. And this is, everything that's not going to be hardcore programming and not going to be server administration or SQL administration. It's just all the things you can do with SharePoint and Office 365 out of the box without getting, too nitty-gritty into any kind of code or anything like that. So we have about 80-something episodes so far. They're all on our YouTube channel, SharePoint RAX, and they're all archived in there in a playlist. But, of course, we do this show live so that you guys can ask questions as we go and participate. So if you are watching on YouTube and you'd like to participate and ask questions, you can click the little yellow link that takes you over to the Google Hangout, because there's a Q&A panel in there. And the way once you're over there, the Q&A panel is going to be, you'll see at the top right corner some little squares. And by default, it shows an app on the right called Showcase, which is links that we share with you. And then you can click the little squares to flip over to the Q&A app, which is where you can ask us questions. So I encourage you to ask questions. And the first thing we're gonna do is just go through and have everybody introduce ourselves, and then I'll be the one doing the demo today on workflows. So. Let's see, we'll go Kevin, then Ryan, then Stephen, then Tavis.
Hi, my name is Kevin Hughes, SharePoint architect here at Rackspace, and based out of Kansas City. My role on the team is to work with our clients to figure out what they need for their business and figure out how to provide that in SharePoint, and work with the rest of our team to make sure it happens.
Hi everybody, I'm Ryan Keller. My role on the team is the branding guy, so I make SharePoint look different and pretty. I'm based out of Colorado, and I've been working with SharePoint for I think eight years or so, and been doing branding for about 3 or 4 years. So that's me.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Wilson. I'm the admin migrations person on the team, but I also do some of the initial engagements, getting people used to SharePoint, starting them off with sort of the basic concepts of how to lay out their content and how to get rolling with their first SharePoint environments.
And I'm Tavis Lovell, and I am the business intelligence developer on the team, so I kind of deal with all things reporting and dashboarding related.
Awesome. Okay, and I'm Laura Rogers. I'm the manager of this lovely team, and I've got about 10 or more years of experience with SharePoint. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I love doing demos on the fly without having any preparation. Woohoo! And I live in Birmingham, Alabama. So today's demo is all about, it's a workflow. And a common request I see that people want to do in SharePoint is get some sort of notification about something specific happening in a list item. Now with SharePoint alerts, when you just go to a list or library and just turn on alerts for yourself, it will, when you set up an alert to be notified when something changes, the alert itself will actually show you what the value used to say and then what it says now. So that is a built-in functionality. But a lot of the times people need a workflow to be triggered or a workflow to do something special, not an alert, to do something more custom, having to do with a specific field having changed. So there are, it's a little tricky, because once a workflow runs, it just knows that an item changed and it knows what the new value is, but the workflow itself doesn't have what the old value used to be able to reference that. So there's some I'm sure there are several different ways to slice and dice it, but a common trick that I use and then I see other people use is what I'm going to demo today, and it is to actually create a copy of field for each field that you want to show the changes in, And you guys in here, you guys feel free to chime in with other ways you've seen it done or other tips and tricks as well. But you create a copy of the field, and then that way with your workflow you have the ability to have both of those values and create the logic around that so that it will do something with that new value and then change the copy field to whatever the new value is after it does that. So I'm going to kind of start from scratch with this. I do have a list, so let me go ahead and share my screen now. Have you guys in the room here seen people ask this before? Let's see, screen one, share. Okay, can you see my corporate travel site now? Just nod. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Alrighty, so here's my demo site, and I've created a very simple list. So this demo is not about the list, and it's not about any kind of approval workflow or anything, any kind of process it goes through. All this demo is going to be very simplistic sort of just list, and I'm only going to be demoing the concept of a field changing and needing to know in a workflow what it got changed to or triggering something according to it being changed. So I have a just simple travel request list, so I think I'll go to Hawaii, and then I'll just put an item in here just so we'll have a couple things in here. Oh, I'm going there pretty soon, so better, yeah. My name in here, what kind of trip is it, and the status is new, and I'll say, Kevin, you get to be my manager. And this is, I'm doing this demo in Office 365. This can be done on premises too as well, of course. This is funny because this status field used to be called something else, and I changed it, and now this one says status Adam. So I'll change that to something else. Okay, that was just bugging me. All right, so now I've got a couple of items in my list. And so the concept is going to be, I just want to know maybe when the status changes, or I want to know if the trip type changes, or I want to know if the cost changes. So things like this that you want to know when they change. So before I even get into the workflow or go over to SharePoint Designer, I'm going to go ahead and create these copy fields of some of these columns. Now, I'm just doing this directly in the list. A lot of the times, if for systems like this and business solutions you're creating, you're going to have everything done as site columns. I'm just creating all these things for this example just directly in the list, just to keep it simple and quick, because it's not all about site columns in this just demo. All right, so I'll go ahead and say maybe I want status to be one of the ones that I need to know when it changes, so I'll just call it status copy, and I can just make it a single line of text. Now my status field is actually a choice field, but with choice fields specifically, it's really just storing a word in there. It's just storing some text, so it's okay that my copy field is just text, but I can make it choice too. I'm just kind of keeping it simple. All right, then I'm going to do a trip type copy, and I'll make that a single line of text too. And you probably would not want to be adding these to default views and things like that, because these are going to be something that you're going to be hiding and not necessarily wanting anybody to see. So I'll go ahead, one that says estimated cost copy, and that one was actually currency. So I'll make that currency and click OK. And then, you know what, actually, so for demo purposes, I probably do want to see all those fields I just created in my view. So I'm going to go ahead and check those off so that they'll show in my view. All right, just so I can have full visibility into what the heck is going on as I'm testing this thing. All right, so now I've got my view and I've got my new copy fields. Now, one of the first things I want to do, or one of the things I want to do before I go live with this, is I want to hide those from the form. I don't want that to be something people see when they fill out the form. So I can go turn on the management of content types. so I can quickly just go in here and hide those fields from the form. And I've done other demos in Power Hours about this whole concept, so I'm not going to go too much into that, but I'll go ahead and just real quick go to these 3 fields and hide those. I did my Power Hours that were about the HR onboarding process, and I wrote a whole blog post on wonderlaura.com about those Power Hours, and I even, in my blog post, I listed out where in the Power Hour, like at what minutes I did everything, so you could easily just go into the part where I went to the content types and did this at like the site settings level and the content types. All right, so those are hidden now. So now when I go to my breadcrumb trail back up to the form, so I'm just double checking that this is not something people are going to see. So they're not going to be interacting with those fields. Those fields are only for the workflow to be doing something behind the scenes. But I'm just showing them here so I can see for testing purposes what their values are. So the first logic we have to think about is when an item gets created, we want to have the copy field immediately have the same value as the original field, because from that point on you want to know if that field gets changed. So an easy way to do that is to just, I can't stand the way it shows all these out-of-the-box approval workflows in all these languages in Office 365. It's so funny. I got to go hit refresh in SharePoint Designer because I already had it hit opened, and I went and added some new columns to my list. So I'll go and refresh that just to make sure that it recognizes all my new columns in here. And then, of course, it takes 15 minutes to refresh. And then I'm going to go create a new workflow. So I'll go do a list workflow directly on my travel requests. Come on. You know what I like about recording something ahead of time and editing in a Camtasia Studio is that you can edit out all the little awkward points where things take forever, right? There's a free online conference next week called SP Biz, and I actually pre-recorded my session for that. And I spent probably a couple of hours going through it and editing out all the little awkward moments like this where it's where it would just, whatever I was doing, it would just randomly take too long, or I would screw something up and having to go back and redo it. Okay, so you hit refresh in SharePoint Designer, and this is Office 365, so you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Okay, so I go to List Workflow here, go to Travel Requests, and I can do this this logic that I'm going to do. I could do it as a 2010 or a 2013 workflow. I'll just do it as 2013. I'll say New Trip Request. And then I'm going to, the first thing I'm going to do is set the values of the copy fields to whatever the values are of the original fields. So they should be the same when a new item gets created. And the whole reason I did this in Office 365 is so it wouldn't be slow using my local VM while I'm trying to run the Google Hangouts at the same time. And now it's slow anyway. Do you guys see this kind of request often, Kevin, Stephen, for people to know when a specific field gets changed?
Yeah, I see something like that very often. I sometimes use a different approach, but the request is very common.
Okay, so once I show you my approach, I want to hear what your approach is, because I know that there are multiple approaches to this. One of the approaches, real quick, that I have seen people do is what you can do is you can do a wait. So I can do an action called wait. Now, if you have a field that you are waiting for it to equal a specific value, like I have this status field, I can wait for that field to equal a specific value and then do something. So that is possible, but that's not the same thing as waiting for that field to equal anything different, or just waiting for that field to change. So that's one option that you have if your requirements are that granular. All right. So, but what I'm going to do is this is only going to run on new item. So I'm just going to say start workflow automatically when an item is created. and this is just going to be the thing that gets done right when it gets created. So I check that box, and then, God, the whole thing is really slow, and then go back to edit my workflow. Holy cow. And of course, by default, when you first create a workflow, it will have the little box checked to automatically just have the workflow run manually started. And that's a lot of the times that's one of the things I forget to go look at this right before I publish the workflow. Just, you know, it's like I always publish it and say, oops, it's not going to automatically start. You know what I think is taking this thing so long is that it's trying to enumerate all those stupid workflows in this little pane over here. See? It's got that little refresh little circle, and it's got like 100 different languages, and it's trying to enumerate all those workflows. So I'm just going to put this on the home over here so it won't do that anymore. All right. Oh, it's still doing it. Ugh, boo. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. So I'll go set a field, set estimated cost copy to whatever estimated cost is. Jack says, in the solutions you build, is it common to have lots of columns? What % of columns are hidden or used for admin types things like this, getting a few of the items created this month, etc.? It's common to have, like, the most columns I would see would be like 50 or 60. Usually for solutions that I see more columns than that, that's where people use an InfoPath form library. What percentage of columns are hidden? It all just depends on, there's not really a percentage. It's just like whatever columns you need to not have users touch. Those are the ones that you're going to hide. So it totally depends on what your business process is and whatever you're doing. Yeah. So that's all going to be completely different from project to project. So now I'm going to say set. Of course, it depends. Gotta love that answer, right? Let's see. Set status copy to status. And if this is a people field, by the way, I was trying to do this with a people field the other day, and it was much more difficult. So maybe we could try this with a people field in this demo, but it was way more crazy difficult than it really ever should be because, yeah, so I specifically did not use a people field for a reason. So then I'm going to go to the end. I'm finished. Now this, your workflow that runs on start, might have other things that it does, but this is just what just what I'm doing for this scenario. So change set field copies. Or actually, I could just call the stage completed, so it just says completed in the column, because people aren't going to be looking at this column anyway when it runs. All right, so I'll go ahead and publish that. And then I'm going to create the gist of where all the logic is going to be in the workflow that's going to run when things are changed. So that's where we have to go see what's different and then do something according to what's different. And I'm actually going to be thinking this through as I'm doing it. So this is not like the most polished or perfect thing, because it's always different, because different requirements, different lists that you have are going to have different numbers of columns and different things that people are going to want to do with those columns. So what I'm going to do here is, for this example, I'm going to say if a field is different, has been changed, I want to have an email that goes out that's got what the old value is and what the new value is. So this is taking forever to publish. What are some other common things that people might want to happen besides an email letting you know what those values are? Could be anything. All right, so now I'll go do another new workflow, and I really don't want to have to go to that screen of all the workflows again and for it to enumerate through all those. I'm going to go straight to my list over here and do it that way. There we go. Haha. All right, so changed travel request. All right, so this is going to run on change. So the first thing that I can do with this one is say I want this to run when things are changed. Anne says, will it work on a people field that allows multiple people? Often you have to turn off multiple people and add the change and then turn the multiple people back on. I don't know. I couldn't get. It's hard to do anything with a people field at all because of the way it doesn't let you do some certain kind of comparisons in the workflow that it does with other fields. So it's not just the multiple people that's complicated. It's just any people field. By Xantio says, when creating all those columns, won't they show up in forms so the user could alter the values in workflow by... I know I just did that a few minutes ago. You might want to rewind because I just showed how to hide those. All right. Rewind. All right, so I'll go ahead and I set it to run on change. And I'll go ahead and say, all right, so what's my logic? So if any value equals any value, so if the current item I'll do the status first. I'll just do one of these. So do status copy is not equal to the status. Then what? All right, so if it doesn't equal the status, then I want to say I could send an email. Right, I can email these users and I can say, I don't know, whoever it needs to be. I'll put Kevin is going to get an email. Status changed on, and then whoever the requester is. All right, and of course this could be like, well, I'll go ahead and just send this to whoever created the item too. All right. I don't usually, in the real world, I don't usually like to hard code people's names in there. Carlos says, hey, Carlos, I use it to check if they are part of a SharePoint group before I let a value change in a field. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I've never seen, I've never done, so you check if they're in a SharePoint group from within a workflow? Interesting. That's intriguing. I'll have to hear more about that. All right, so the status has been changed from status copy. It's been changed from status copy to status. All right. And then, of course, I like to usually just put a hyperlink to whatever the item is. So I could just put like, I'll just put the requester's name. Requester travel is what that hyperlink's going to say, and then I'll just put it as a link to that current item URL. All right. Now that is for one, and then the next logic that it has to do is to go set, after it's done the logic that it needs to do, then it has to go set the copy of field, set status copy to whatever the value of copy is. I mean, status is. Bleh. Status. So now they're not different anymore. So it does what it's supposed to do, and then it is done, and then now they're not different, so then that condition won't exist anymore. So let's go ahead and try both of those workflows. That's a very simplistic example, right? So of course in the real world it gets more complicated than that. Joelle, now that you're here, I'm probably gonna I'd love to know if you get people asking about this kind of thing, to know, you know, when a specific field changes and do something in a workflow based on that. So I know that this is just one way to go about this, by having a copy field, but I know that this is probably something you might have seen before, so seen people ask for before.
Oh yeah, I see it all the time. And I pretty much handle it exactly like this.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Kevin, while this is publishing, do you have like a quick synopsis of what your different way is? He's not going to be quick enough now. There you go. Okay, never mind. It finished publishing. Oh, you weren't fast enough to the unmute button. Okay, I'm going to go create a new item. And then next time I'm waiting for something, I'll ask you again. Let's say I'm going to go to New Orleans. Trip start, trip end. Requester is me. You could put, in this case, I made it so you could put someone else as a requester. Status is new. Manager, my manager is going to be Ryan for this one. And stuff. It's going to cost me $12 to go to New Orleans. Okay, so now one workflow should be running. I'll go ahead and maximize this. Actually, you know what? Remember last time we were doing the demo and we were talking about how a better screen resolution might have been helpful because of just people trying to look at it in their browser. I wonder if we could do like, what was it? 1280 by 720. I think that was one that was. Put it on 1280 by 720 and see if that helps. Ooh, what do y'all think of that? I think this might help, like for the YouTube, for the recording, for people to be able to see it better, though. See what I'm saying? Alrighty. I'm going to refresh this again and see if it added. It usually adds. See, it adds the columns when it runs the workflows, but it hasn't. You can see. You can tell that it added the columns, but it's just a little slow, and the workflows haven't actually run yet. Because it's supposed to say the name of the stage of the workflow right here in the column. It's a shame that it's taken that long for them to run, huh? All right, you know what I'm going to do also for this view so I don't have to keep scrolling back and forth? I'm going to get rid of a couple of these columns I don't necessarily need to see for testing purposes. So I don't have to keep scrolling back and forth. Now I'm going to go click on New Orleans here, and I'll go see what's going on with it. So you can tell in Office 365 there's this new little advanced thing, and that's how I can get to the one way that I can get to see the workflows. Okay, so it says there are no running items on this workflow, and there are no completed items. So it didn't run the workflows that I set to run on Create and on Change. Oh, look at that. I know I went in here. You saw me go in here and click and check the box next to Created. I'll go ahead and do that again. And I probably didn't do it on the changed one. Maybe I did. But yeah, that would explain why I didn't do it. I went to this screen and I actually went through a diatribe about how I always forget to do that and then wonder why my workflows don't run. I know I was there. All right, so while this is just being fixed, I'll go ahead and just manually trigger the new trip request. Since we're just testing, I can just pretend that it ran when a new item got created, and then I'll be patient and wait for it to run. And it should show the status, and there we go. So that one ran. So now we'll go run the other one that runs on Change because, well, so technically I haven't changed it yet. So yeah, so we don't have to worry about that one yet. Okay, so that one I set to run when items created, and this one I did set it to run when an item is changed. Okay, so that's good. So now let's go back to the list. So the list is going to be here, and I can see that trip type copy says conference. Estimated cost copy says $12, and status copy says new. So those are the three copy fields. So they did do what they were supposed to be doing. All right, so now I'm going to go edit that, and I'll change the status. And click Save. All right, so that should run the change travel request workflow. And any day now. And it's probably going to say, yeah, stage 1. Okay, so I didn't put any logging in my workflows, so if I click this, it wouldn't give me any additional information. But it should have sent an email. So Let's see. Kevin, did you get an email? Let's see. Let me go to my, since I'm in Office 365, I can just flip over to my email here. Look, I got an email. Look at that. Status changed on Laura Rogers' trip. The status has been changed to new to manager approval. So that's all I needed to know. Pretty cool, huh? So there's my quick little mail notification. I like that I didn't have to go all the way over to email, huh? Okay, so that was a very super simple one. Now let's go into something that's going to be a little more, maybe a little more tricky. All right, so status copy doesn't equal current item status. I just send an email. Well, what if I want to know, I have several different fields that I want to look at. So I don't want to just look at that one and then send an email. I want to look at like all three of them. So instead of looking at each one and sending an email immediately if it's changed, another thing I can think of doing would be like to just set some variables. Does that make sense? So I'll say like if, because it's not going to be an else, right? It's not going to be like if this copy doesn't equal this, then do this. Otherwise, because it could, any of them could have changed, right? So it's not going to be like an else condition buried in this first if. It's going to be three completely separate if conditions. So then it's going to be if current item, estimated cost. Did I put the copy first? Yeah. Estimated cost copy not equals estimated cost, then do something, and then a completely separate if statement. So like I'm going to say check changes. Like that. That's what I'm going to call my stage. And then a completely different if statement, because I want to have all three of these pieces of information maybe just in one email. So I did status, I did estimated cost, I'll do trip type not equals Right, so for this, before, when it was very simple, when it was just one field, I just said if it doesn't equal this, just send an email. But I can't do that if it's three different fields. I don't want to send three different emails. I want to have it all together in one email. So what I need to do is go ahead and take this email out of here. And then I'm going to take this out of here too, maybe. Yeah, let me think. Let's see. I'll go set a workflow variable. I'm going to say I want my new variable of, let's see, old status variable. You guys shout it out if you think that there's a more efficient way to do what I'm doing as I'm going, or just a different way that you could go about it. This is just kind of using variables is just a way that you can kind of keep some information in the workflow and just hold on to it to be able to use it later. So set variable old status variable to, so if it gets changed, set variable old status variable to. I'm trying to think, I know that there was one that I did one time where the workflow had like this whole piece of text that it had in it that said like the status was changed to this, and that was the variable, so that the email would have, instead of having to say this was changed or this wasn't changed and then this was changed or wasn't changed, and kind of all this extra verbiage that you might not need if other things weren't changed, it just had text, like red text in the email saying, stating what the variable was and saying it was changed. So I know what I just said totally doesn't make sense, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right. So I'm going to say set old status variable to, and then I'm going to say, I'll go ahead, instead of using the function button, I'm going to use the ellipsis. All right. So my old status variable is going to say status was, and then I'm going to say what the copy status copy was. status copy, and now is status. Right? So now the variable has what the old value was. It has it all stored in here. So now I can just go set the status copy to the current item status. And now that part's done, and I can just use this variable later on in the workflow. All right, so then I'm going to say set workflow variable, and I'm just going to have a different variable for each one of these fields that got changed. So I'm going to say old cost variable, and that one's going to be a string too. And I'll say cost was and this is going to be the cost, estimated cost copy as formatted currency. Nice, huh? And now is estimated cost formatted currency. Okay. All right, and then set the copy, the estimated cost copy, to now equal whatever the estimated cost is. And again, this is so that this condition won't, you don't want this exact condition to be triggered again. All right, estimated cost. All right, so then one more. So set workflow variable. So Joelle, when you had multiple ones, multiple fields, did you do kind of variables like that in your workflow to be able to kind of keep track of what was changing?
I did.
What was yours? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this one's going to be old trip type string, and then that's going to be trip type was trip type copy, and is now trip type. And then set, oh, we've got some questions. Let me see. Oh, Tony said, oh, he liked the way I changed the resolution. Cool. All right. And then Tony says, when would you or why would you use a 2010 versus 2013? That is a very philosophical question. It all just depends on if you need, really, usually if you need any of the functionality that 2010 has versus 2013, because they have different functionality. So, and that's kind of a long list of things that are different. So maybe we could have a whole other SharePoint Power Hour about what the difference is between 2010 and 2013. I'm sorry. Well, let me set this field real quick. So then set the old trip type. I set the trip type copy to the value of trip type. And Ann says, how long has SharePoint 2013 workflows been around? When I've been doing them, I saw 2010 but not 2013. If you're in SharePoint 2013 on premises and you don't see SharePoint 2013 workflows as an option, it means that your server administrator, when they installed SharePoint, they did not go through the separate installation of installing SharePoint 2013 workflows. It's called Workflow Manager. It's a whole separate download. It's a separate installation. It's a whole thing. You got to do stuff in PowerShell and all this extra stuff to make it. It's a whole separate workflow farm, basically. You can install it on your SharePoint server, but it's an extra installation that your server admin needs to have known to go through to give you SharePoint 2013 workflows. Oh, she said that would have helped me last week. But what I'm doing right now could be done in either kind of workflow. All right, so now let's go ahead and publish that. No, we didn't send an email yet. So I'll do another stage just for fun. Workflow. Email. I'll just say email. And I want to make sure not go to end of workflow here. I need to go to email sent. And you said you're in the cloud and you don't have 2013 workflows? That's very odd. Can you guys think of any reason you'd be in Office 365 and not have Office 365? If you're in Office 365, that's what I'm in here, and you should have 2013 workflows, so that doesn't make any sense. If you're in the cloud and it's not Office 365, it's still some SharePoint server that somebody needs to have installed that on. All right, so send an email. I'm going to notify user who created the current item, and I'll go ahead and notify whoever the manager is in here.
Another reason why you might not get the 2013 workflows is if you're using a 2010 site collection. So if they never converted to the 2013 site collection, they wouldn't get the 2013 workflows.
Good to know. All right. Following fields have been changed in this trip request, and then what I can do is can stick my workflow variables in here, and if it doesn't have anything in it, it just won't show. So that way it'll only show what the changes are. Let me see. My spacing is going to be a little awkward, but let's see, old cost, old status, old trip type. So it'll just say, like, I can even put it in red or something. And if I really want to go in here and get into the nitty-gritty with my spacing, I could go straight into the HTML of my email, and maybe instead of putting paragraph breaks, I could put like just a single line break like that. I don't know, I'm not going to worry about that though. Okay, so now let's see what it does. Go ahead and publish it. We got a lot of questions today. This is awesome. Okay. Carlos says, I think 2010 needs to be enabled in the cloud at the tenant level. 2013 workflows? Oh, okay. Is that like in the SharePoint settings in the cloud? I don't recall seeing that setting.
That's one of those that it really depends on who the host is. In Office 365, in Microsoft Office 365, there is no step to make that happen. But in some other SharePoint hosting, some of them do not have the SharePoint 2013 Workflow Manager enabled in all tenants. You can enable it or make it visible to or not each individual tenant when you do a multi-tenant installation.
All right. And Carlos says, rumor has it that workflows are supposed to be much faster in 2013. I don't know. I haven't personally seen any big difference, but that would be nice. You would think that they would be faster, right? Have y'all seen them being faster?
It's not necessarily that they're any faster. It's that the SharePoint 2013 Workflow Manager works outside SharePoint, so it no longer depends on timer jobs like the 2010 workflows. As such, we don't have the timer job lag or the potential timer job bottleneck that we might have, especially for doing waits or wait until steps or massive numbers of workflows hitting the timer all at once. So since it works outside SharePoint, it does have the potential to initiate faster and, depending on the resources of the machine, actually complete the workflow faster, but it's all dependent upon the environment.
Nice, good to know. Anne says they have brand new site collections and the drop down doesn't show 2013 as an option, and that she said Microsoft is hosting ours. I guess that means it's Office 365. Yeah, Anne, that totally doesn't make any sense to me as to why you wouldn't see those. I've never seen that.
Though Carlos does say that the Admin Center lets you block them.
Oh, there you go. Carlos says, yeah, SharePoint Admin Center lets you block SharePoint 2013 workflows in the Connected Services section. So, and maybe somebody blocked them in your environment. So, yeah. Might want to go ask your admin about that, or if you are the admin, go in there and look in the connected services section. Good to know. All right, so we have, I'll go ahead and, like my trip to Hawaii, I'll just go ahead, instead of creating yet another item in this list, I'll just go ahead and run my new item workflow on the Hawaii one, my new trip request. All right, and then I like this little button that lets you just focus on the content and not have to worry about, you know, if you got a list with a bunch of columns, you don't have to worry about all those, all the navigation, all that junk that's kind of in the way sometimes. So that one ran. And again, I didn't put any logging in it, so logging is the log to history list action. It'd be helpful. I don't know if I'm going to have time to go add logging to it, but I didn't add any log to history list actions in my workflow, so it doesn't say a single thing in here. So I have no idea. If I'm troubleshooting, I have no idea what happened or didn't happen. And now this one, so now it's got all the copy fields. Now you wouldn't in the real world have these showing in your columns. They would just be, we already hid them from the form, and you would hide them from your views too. But I'm just showing these for testing purposes. And I'll go change something in Hawaii. I'll just change 2 of the 3 things. So I'll go change just the cost. And I'll change the status. All right, and then hopefully that will trigger it to run. Not yet. Okay, so it's on the checks changes stage. Maybe it's just very slow. Either that or it got stuck. Started. Activity in progress. Now it's completed. Status email sent. All right, so let's go look at my email. Go back to my site. Now I've got this little, there we go. Says email sent. Don't you love the way I pin these and it takes them a few minutes to come back and show me? It's not showing me my little email notification like it was a minute ago though. I wish that would have opened in a new window too, a new tab. Field change, intro, oh, look at that. The following fields have been changed in this trip request. Cost was $777, is now $888. And, no, what? And then status was new and is now VP approval step. So that way, you know how I had 3 different ones that it was tracking, so only 2 of them changed, and I wasn't wasting a bunch of text in my email saying that something changed or didn't change that wasn't relevant at that time. Does that make sense? So that's why I put just all this verbiage just as the variable. And that way I could just stick them all in there. All right. Let's see. What other kind of... so Kevin, you were going to say you went about this in a different way?
Yeah, I spoke prematurely. I mean, before I saw exactly what you were doing.
Oh, okay.
For this specific use, I'd probably use the same or similar approach.
Yeah, it's just
that very rarely do the client requests let us do something so simple. They usually want a whole lot more business logic plugged in, so...
Yeah, that's true. So you might have a lot of other stuff going on. You might have approval emails. You might have different things going on in your workflow. So that's where it's going to be important to have stages or steps and name them and make sure that it's doing them all in the, in the right order according to whatever the logic of whatever the heck that business process happens to be. When you absolutely need to, you might want to have a separate workflow that does this, but usually I try to have no more than 1 workflow running when things are created and no more than 1 workflow running when things are changed, and just try to build all the logic into that workflow instead of having a whole bunch of different ones doing different things and possibly conflicting with each other.
Yeah, that for me, that's the same kind of approach or how I approach workflows when I'm using the 2013 workflows, but not when I use the 2010s. The 2010s, since if I have a lot of conditional changes that I'm looking at, then a lot of times I'll create each condition as a separate workflow, just to try to get around the timer job lag that happens in 2010. But in 2013, I go the same way you do. You know, the fewer workflows, the better. They may look complex, but it's a lot easier to manage that way.
Yeah, I've done what you just said with the 2010 ones. I've done that one as well, where you just say, if this condition, then do this, otherwise stop. And then that way you might have several that start all at once, but only one of them's actually the one doing something. It's just, it gets tricky when you want to make sure that they aren't conflicting with each other or triggering each other when they shouldn't, or that kind of thing. But I love the way you can jump between stages in the 2013 one. Ann says, I wonder if the view I see of this live video would be different if I wasn't accessing Google+. I don't know what that's pertaining to, but I think that it would be the same. Okay, so let's see. Oh wait, let me see. Jason says, on Office 365, SharePoint, do workflows like these handle rapid change as well? For instance, if you had changed the status, then gone right back in and changed the trip type, you would get 2 emails, but the workflows should be able to stack, right? Yes, the workflows should know what order your changes were. The thing that 2010 workflows will actually trigger each other. So if you have 2010 workflow that changes something in another list, and that list also has a workflow, when the workflow makes the change, it will trigger the other workflow. And then that workflow could possibly even be triggering something back in your original list, and the workflows could potentially just be triggering each other in 2010. In 2013, it's actually going to be a little different. So a workflow is not going to like trigger itself, and it's not going to trigger another workflow. So if I go from this, and that's kind of good and bad. So if I go from this list and I say set a field value in like update, do an update action and set a field value in some other list, and that other list has a workflow, it's not going to get triggered. So that's not necessarily exactly what you're asking, but it's kind of related, just kind of interesting thing to know about rapid changes, because usually the most rapid changes I see are when workflows start changing each other and then like kind of end up bouncing back and forth a whole bunch.
That loop was the reason in 2013 workflows they put in the steps of start another workflow, so you can actually start one manually.
Except it can only be a 2010 one. That's kind of so that's kind of one of those things that if you have it's just 2010. So if you have a workflow that's associated with another list that's a 2010 workflow, and you need to do a 2010 workflow for just something very specific, like 2010 workflows have impersonation steps, and they have all those permissions actions that 2013 ones don't have. So if you have something very specific that you need a 2010 workflow to go do real quick, then you have that start another workflow thing where you can go just kick something off on that. I haven't ever actually used that. I'm not sure what the parameters thing would be doing, but yeah, it sounds intriguing. So the last thing that I would be doing would be adding some logging in here. So we've got like 6 minutes left. So you guys let me know if you have questions. So I could do logging between every single action in here. I could say estimated cost copy set to, and I can tell exactly what it's doing, and then I can say I'm setting it to whatever estimated cost is, and then I could say, and I can actually log this, that would be quicker. I mean, copy it. Copy, I love the copy paste in 2013 that you don't get in 2010. So this one's status. Copy set to, and then, oh, Jason, thanks, I'm glad you liked it. And then that was going to be status. And I could put either one of these because it's the same exact value. And then etc. So I could do logging after every single thing. Thanks, Jason. Glad you thought it was helpful. Oh, Carlos has another comment. Regarding my earlier comment regarding if a user is a specific SharePoint group, the person is a valid SharePoint user. Lets you enter a group, and it will return true if the user running the workflow is in the group. That is awesome. I didn't know that. So that's a condition. Person is a valid SharePoint user. Oh, so you pick a group like that?
You aren't showing your screen.
Oh, I'm not. I wasn't showing my screen this whole time. Good grief. The whole time I was talking about logging and... All right, thanks. Okay. Okay, so I'll just do that again. And I was showing that other action that I put in there, and all right. Yeah, I don't notice the comments and stuff like that, and unless y'all say anything out loud, because I just have the Q&A pulled up. Thanks, Frank. Frank mentioned that I wasn't sharing. Okay.
Also, people like the 1280 width.
Oh, good. Oh, good to know. Okay. Okay, so the thing I was showing a second ago was the start another workflow action. Start a list workflow. See, it's only 2010. That's what I was showing a second ago. And then the Carlos, this is intriguing. Have y'all ever used this? I didn't realize this. Person is a valid SharePoint user. So you pick a group here, Carlos, and then if they're in the group, then it will do whatever's in this condition. I didn't know that. Okay. All right, thanks, Ann. Let's see. I'm waiting for Carlos to answer me. Y'all are probably on a little bit of a lag. Okay. And then also, I'll go back and show you all the logging that I was doing too while I'm waiting to see if Carlos says that this is correct. Okay, so this is what I used an action called, I just type log like this, and it's got an action called log to history list. So I inserted log to history list, and I said estimated cost copy set to, and then I just inserted what that field was, and then I put another log here, and then I can just copy that one and put another log here. And that way, I'm just, every single thing that I put in here is going to be showing in, let's see, in my, when I go look at the workflow history. Strip type set to, oh, Carla said yes. That's awesome. I had no idea. I learned something new. I appreciate that. I'm excited. Joelle, did you know that? Putting you on the spot.
No, I did not.
I thought it was just, I never really knew what that applied to. It's just a valid SharePoint user. What does that mean? Are they? I figured it was just like, are they in your organization or are they like an external user or something? But so Carlos says, this is very cool little tidbit of the day. If you put this condition in your workflow, it will only do whatever you put in here if the person running the workflow is in that group. So you just pick a group, and then it will only do that if the person's in the group. That is awesome. That is
yeah, I've never used that. That's really good.
That's huge. People want to do that kind of thing all the time, though, so I'm glad I learned that. All right. So it's just about time to wrap up. I'll go ahead and publish that change. Yeah, Ann said thanks, Carlos. I like that we have all our regulars and our groupies, and that we actually got to meet them in person. Some of them in person at Ignite. That was awesome. Tavis wasn't there, but Carlos came and walked up and stood there while we did Power Hour and like hung out with us and talked about the conference with us and stuff. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, so I'm just publishing the workflow. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm remembering now that I stopped sharing my screen. So thanks everybody for coming, and hopefully you got a little bit of insight into workflows, and we're gonna make Carlos come do a Power Hour one day to teach us his workflow guru tips. But yeah, I'm not sure what we're doing next week, but it'll be awesome, and I hope you guys come back. It's every Wednesday at 11 Central, and thanks everybody for watching. Over and out.